It all started at a barbecue. One of those casual get-togethers with friends, nothing too fancy. I remember it was a warm afternoon and the sun was just beginning to set. The light was golden and everyone was relaxed, laughing and enjoying themselves. That's when I saw her, Kate. She had this way about her. The kind of presence that just draws you in. Her smile was easy, her laugh infectious. I noticed her across the yard talking to a few mutual friends. There was something about her that made it impossible to look away. We ended up in the same circle chatting, and before I knew it, we were talking like we'd known each other forever. We clicked instantly. It felt like we were on the same wavelength from the start. We spent the rest of the evening together talking about everything and nothing at the same time. She had this incredible ability to make me feel like the most important person in the room, like what I was saying really mattered. By the end of the night, I knew I had to see her again. And that is exactly what happened. We started dating soon after that barbecue, and it was like something out of a movie. Everything just felt so natural, so right. We had this amazing chemistry. The kind that does not come around too often. We spent as much time together as we could, whether it was going out to dinner, watching movies at home, or just taking long walks and talking about our dream. A year and a half later, we got married. The wedding was beautiful. Small, just close family and friends. We were both so happy, so sure that we were building something lasting. I thought I had found my person, the one I would spend the rest of my life with. The first few years were great. We supported each other's careers, made plans for the future, and just enjoyed being together. We traveled when we could, spent weekends exploring new places, and made our house feel like a home. I loved her deeply, and I truly believe she felt the same way. We were that couple, the one everyone thought had it all together. At least, that is how it seemed on the surface. Looking back now, I realized how perfect everything felt, how safe and secure I was in our relationship. I was completely in love, totally committed, and I thought she was too. It is funny how life can fool you like that. How you can be so sure of something, only to find out later that maybe you were not seeing things as clearly as you thought. But at the time, I had no reason to doubt her. No reason to think that anything could ever come between us. I was happy, we were happy, or so I believe. A few years into our marriage, things started to change. It was not like a switch flipped overnight, but more like a slow, creeping shift that I barely noticed at first. Kate began working longer hours, and I told myself it was just the demands of her job. She was always ambitious, always driven, and I admired that about her. But the late nights became more frequent. The weekends started filling up with work commitments, and we were spending less and less time together. At first, I tried not to think too much of it. Everyone gets busy, right? But then there were other things, little things that started to add up. She was on her phone more often, and when I walked into the room, she would quickly put it away. Our conversations, which used to flow so easily, became shorter, more strained. She seemed distracted, distant even, like her mind was somewhere else. One night, I remember she told me she had a late meeting and would not be home until after midnight. I did not think much of it at the time, but when she finally came home, something just felt off. She was quiet, a little too quiet, and went straight to bed without saying much. I lay there beside her, staring at the ceiling, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling in my gut. I told myself I was being paranoid, that it was all in my head. But then there was that day I found the bra in her car. It was a Saturday, and I was just about to head out to run some errands. I got into her car by mistake, I know, dumb habit. And there it was, lying on the passenger seat. It was hers, no doubt about it, but why would it be there? I sat there for a good few minutes, just staring at it, my mind racing with all kinds of thoughts. When I asked her about it later, she shrugged it off, said she must have left it there when she changed after work one day. She said it so casually, like it was no big deal. but something about her tone just did not sit right with me. That was when the doubts really started to set in. I could not shake the feeling that something was wrong, that she was hiding something from me. But I did not want to confront her without proof, without knowing for sure. So I tried to ignore it, to push those thoughts to the back of my mind. I focused on work, on anything that would keep me from obsessing over it. But the distance between us kept growing. We used to talk about everything. Our day, our dreams, our plans for the future. Now our conversations were more like small talk, just skimming the surface. I missed the way things used to be, the way we used to be. I missed my wife, the woman I fell in love with. But every time I tried to bring it up, she would brush it off, saying that I was overthinking things, that everything was fine. Still, I could not shake the feeling that something was off. It was like a dark cloud hanging over us, something I could not see but could definitely feel. And the more I tried to ignore it, the more it gnawed at me until I could not take it anymore. That was when I knew I had to find out the truth, no matter how much it might hurt. I could not get it out of my head. The doubts, the little things that did not add up, the feeling in my gut that something was terribly wrong. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much I wanted to avoid it. I had this overwhelming need to find out, to put an end to the questions that were driving me insane. So one night, while Kate was in the shower, I did something I never thought I would do. I went through her phone. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through her messages, but I did not find anything suspicious. It was mostly work stuff and texts from friends. But that did not bring me any relief. If anything, it made me more paranoid. She was smart. I knew that if she was hiding something, she would not make it easy to find. That is when I got the idea to track her. I felt sick to my stomach just thinking about it, like I was crossing a line I could never come back from. But I was desperate. I needed to know the truth, and I could not confront her without proof. So I bought a cheap secondhand phone, activated it, and hid it under the passenger seat of her car. I downloaded a tracking app on it, something discreet, and synced it with my phone. The next time she told me she was working late, I checked the app. I watched as the little dot on the screen moved, but not in the direction of her office. My heart was pounding as I saw it head towards the other side of town, towards a bar I knew she had mentioned once or twice. She stayed there for about an hour before the dot started moving again. This time it stopped at a hotel. My stomach dropped. There it was, the confirmation I dreaded. I sat in my car outside our house, staring at my phone, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. There was no more doubt, no more guessing. She was cheating on me. The woman I love, the woman I had built my life with, was with someone else. I do not remember driving to the hotel, but I must have. When I got there, I parked far enough away that she would not see me and waited. It felt like an eternity sitting there in the dark, watching the entrance. Then I saw them, Kate and some guy I had never seen before. They walked out together laughing, her arm casually linked through his. They looked so comfortable, so at ease, like this was just another night for them. I wanted to confront them, to storm over there and demand answers, but I was frozen in place, completely numb. I could not believe what I was seeing. The reality of it was too much to process, so I just sat there, watching as they got into his car and drove off, leaving me alone with the truth. I do not know how long I stayed there in that parking lot, but eventually I drove home. The house was dark and empty, just like I felt inside. I did not sleep that night. I could not. My mind was racing with questions. How long had this been going on? Who was this guy? Did she ever really love me, or was it all just a lie? By the time morning came, I knew what I had to do. I could not keep living like this, drowning in doubt and pain. I needed to get out, to find a way to move on, even if it felt impossible. But first, I had to confront Kate. I had to hear her say it, to look her in the eye and ask her why. The next morning, I was still sitting on the couch when Kate walked through the door. She was all smiles, acting like it was just another day. but I could not play along anymore. The weight of what I had seen, what I knew, was too heavy to carry alone. I asked her straight out where she had been. She paused for a moment, just long enough to make me think she was coming up with a lie. Then she said she had been at work, that things had run late. The same old story, but this time I was not buying it. I told her I knew, that I had followed her, seen her at the hotel with that guy. The color drained from her face. For a second, she looked like she might deny it, but then she just sat down, staring at the floor. She did not try to explain, did not offer any excuses. She just said, "I'm sorry." That was all she could say. Sorry. It felt like a slap in the face. I was shaking, trying to hold it together, trying to make sense of it all. I asked her how long it had been going on, why she did it, but she just kept repeating the same thing over and over. I'm sorry. I needed more than that. I needed answers, needed something to help me understand how we had ended up here. But she would not give me anything. She just sat there apologizing like that was supposed to fix everything, like it could somehow undo the betrayal. In that moment, I knew it was over. Whatever we had, whatever I thought we had, was gone. I could not stay, could not keep pretending that everything was okay. I needed to get out, to find some way to move on with my life. But I did not know where to start. The life I had built with Kate was all I knew, and suddenly it felt like it was crumbling around me. That was when I remembered Ray. We had met a few months earlier at a bar when I was out of town for work. He was a laid-back guy, older than me, with a kind of calm wisdom that made you feel at ease. We had talked for hours that night about everything and nothing. He mentioned that he had a place up in the mountains where he lived alone in a trailer away from all the noise of the world. At the time, it sounded like a nice escape, but now it felt like the only place I could go. So I called him. I did not tell him everything, just that I was going through a rough time and needed to get away for a while. He did not ask questions. He just said, "Come on up. I've got a place for you." That night, while Kate was at work, wherever she really was, I started packing. I did not take much, just the essentials, enough to get by for a few weeks. I was not ready to confront her again, not yet. So I left a note, something short, telling her I needed space, that I was leaving for a while. Then I got in the car and drove. The drive to Ray's place was long, giving me too much time to think. But I was determined to keep going. When I finally arrived, it was late and the mountains were quiet, almost eerily so. But the stillness felt good, like a weight lifting off my shoulder. Ray was waiting for me, standing on the porch of his trailer, a beer in each hand. He handed me one and just nodded like he knew exactly what I needed. He did not push me to talk, and I was grateful for that. We just sat there in silence, looking out at the stars, the cool mountain air filling my lungs. Over the next few days, I slowly started moving my things out of the house. I would go back when I knew Kate was not there, pack up some clothes, a few personal items, and bring them up to the trailer. I could not face her. Not yet. It was easier this way to just disappear, to let the distance between us grow. Living in that trailer, surrounded by nothing but trees and mountains, gave me the space I needed to breathe, to think. It was not much, just a bed, a small kitchen, a table, but it was enough. It was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could start to heal. Kate tried to call, tried to reach out, but I ignored her. I was not ready to talk, not ready to face the reality of what had happened. I needed time to figure out what I wanted, what I needed. And so I stayed in that trailer, slowly unpacking my life piece by piece as I tried to figure out what to do next. Eventually, I knew I could not hide forever. The divorce papers arrived a few months later, and I signed them without hesitation. And it was the final step in cutting ties, in letting go of the life I thought I had. It hurt more than I can put into words, but it was also freeing. I was no longer tied to the lies, no longer trapped in a marriage that was built on a foundation that had crumbled beneath me. Ray was there for me through it all, offering advice when I needed it, a quiet presence when I did not. And slowly, I started to rebuild, started to find myself again in the solitude of the mountain. It is funny how time changes things. I went up to those mountains to get away from everything, to run, if I am being honest. I did not have a plan. I just knew I could not stay where I was, surrounded by memories of a life that no longer felt real. Those first few weeks were tough, like I was wandering through a fog trying to figure out where the hell I had gone wrong. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, something shifted. It was like the silence up there in the mountains started to work its way into me, helping me sort through the chaos in my head. I spent a lot of time walking, just wandering the trails, getting lost in the trees and the fresh air. There was something about being out there in nature, away from everything, that made it easier to think, really think. Ray was a good guy. He never pushed, never asked me to talk about what had happened unless I wanted to. He just let me be, gave me the space I needed. Every now and then we would sit out on the porch with a couple of beers, and I would open up a bit. I told him about Kate, about how perfect things seemed at first, how blindsided I felt when I found out about the affair. He listened, offered a few words of advice here and there, but mostly he just let me get it all out. One night, after one too many beers, I finally let it all spill out. The anger, the betrayal, the sadness. I told him how lost I felt, how I did not know if I would ever be able to trust anyone again. He just nodded, took a sip of his beer, and said something that stuck with me. You got dealt a shitty hand, no doubt about it. But you are still here. You are still standing. That counts for something. It was simple, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. I realized then that I had been so focused on what I had lost that I had not taken a moment to appreciate what I still had. I was alive, I was healthy, and I was free to start over. It was not going to be easy, but I could do it. I had to. I started taking small steps to rebuild my life. I found a job in a nearby town. Nothing fancy, just something to keep me busy and give me a sense of purpose. I rented a small cabin not far from Ray's place, something of my own where I could start fresh. It was not much, but it was mine. I slowly started to make it feel like home, filling it with little things that brought me comfort. A bookshelf filled with my favorite novels, a guitar I picked up to pass the time, a couple of plants that I somehow managed not to kill. I also started to connect with people again. It was not easy. I had been burned, and the idea of letting anyone in was terrifying, but I knew I could not live the rest of my life closed off. So I pushed myself to get out there, to meet new people, to build new friendships. It was awkward at first, but I took it one step at a time, one conversation at a time. Over time, I realized that life was not about trying to forget the past, but about learning to live with it. I could not erase what had happened with Kate, could not pretend it did not hurt like hell, but I could learn from it. I could take those lessons and use them to build a better future for myself. The mountains became my sanctuary, a place where I could find peace and clarity. I spent hours exploring, hiking up to the highest peaks, standing at the edge of cliffs looking out at the vastness of it all. It made my problems seem small in comparison, like maybe, just maybe, I could handle whatever life threw at me next. And then one day, something amazing happened. I was in town grabbing a coffee when I met this woman, Emily. She was not like Kate. Where Kate was polished and put together, Emily was down to earth with a warm smile and a laugh that made you feel instantly at ease. We started talking, and before I knew it, we were sitting there for hours, just enjoying each other's company. I did not expect to meet someone new, not so soon after everything that had happened. But there she was. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. We took things slow, both of us a bit wary from past relationships, but there was something real between us, something I had not felt in a long time. It was not easy learning to trust again, But Emily was patient. She understood what I had been through, and she never pressured me. She was just there, steady and kind, letting me move at my own pace. And gradually, I started to open up to let her in. Now, I am not going to say everything is perfect because life is never that simple. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I am on solid ground. I have built a new life for myself, one that I am proud of, and I have learned to love again in a way that is deeper and more honest than before. Looking back, I can see how far I have come. I went from feeling like my world was ending to realizing that it was just the beginning of something new. It took time, a lot of time, and a hell of a lot of pain, but I made it through. And now I am ready for whatever comes next.